If you're subscribed to my channel, you might have seen this video that I made earlier this year, where I made the Daydreamer strap dress from Daria Pattern Making. I made this for a cello recital that I had coming up, and I just felt a little bare on the top. I wanted something to cover my shoulders in case it was cold when I was performing. So at first I tried this dressmaking Amore Gabby pattern, but it did not work with the fabric. It's definitely more of a jacket and you can't really lift your arms very much, so not good for plain cello. So instead I decided to take inspiration from Ariana Grande's, I don't know what event this was, but it's a Thom Browne look. It adds this vintage touch to the look that is so elegant and suits her really well. Another inspiration was this look from the Priscilla movie, and also this capelet right here. So with that, I looked on the internet and this was the best capelet pattern I could find. So it's from Stop Cosplay. And at first I was really confused about how to assemble the pattern. There's so much instructions, but it didn't really say how much you should overlap. But I did some digging. I asked on they have a Discord, and I also asked on their social media pages, and they responded pretty quickly. You're not supposed to have any overlap at all. Just line the pages up and tape them. So that was new for me. Another thing to note is that you have to buy the sizes separately, so you can't get a bundle of sizes when you purchase the pattern. So if you're planning on making this for more than one person, keep that in mind. Also, just a reminder to subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. Okay, so here's the fabric I'm using. It's leftover. It's originally from the mystery box, and then I used it for the Daydreamer strap dress. I had like 9 or 7 meters of it, so I definitely still had a lot left over. Even after this project, I decided to self-line it, so all the lining pieces are cut in the same fabric. And here I am just pinning the pattern down. At this point it was April and my recital was coming up pretty soon, so I didn't have tons of time to spend on this capelet. So I didn't make any adjustments, I didn't make a muslin, I didn't lengthen or shorten it. I just kind of crossed my fingers and hoped it would fit. These small circles I'm marking with tailor's tacks. That's because the chalk often doesn't wash out, and especially since this would be right on the front and center of your garment, I didn't want to risk it. After stitching them, then you just pull the pieces apart and snip them so that you have a mark on both sides of the fabric on each piece. So here are the cutout pieces. A little bit wrinkly, but I can iron them later. So first step is to attach the front to the back on both the lining pieces and the main fabric. The seam allowance in the pattern is 1/2 inch, so I just use the 10mm line on my sewing machine and move the needle over to the left, and that gives me the best result. And then of course you're going to press your fabric. This, I don't think I mentioned it, it's a poly blend. It's definitely synthetic, so I just use a pretty low iron, but I do use steam, and I always use a press cloth. It's got a bit of a sheen to it, so you don't want to risk that going away. So now you have two kind of shells to put together. I had this leftover lace from the hem of my Daydreamer dress, and I decided to put it on the front of the capelet. First, I just attached it to the main fabric layer using a zigzag. And then you sew the lining to the main fabric all along that circle. This lace is pretty thick, so you can see my machine was like blinking a little bit because sometimes when it hits the lace it doesn't want to go through it. And then you just trim, pretty big seam. This capelet does come together really quickly. I think it took me like 2 days in total, maybe 3. Then this is the tie, which I wasn't originally going to put. I was going to use a button at first, but then I decided based on the way it fit me, that a tie would allow for more kind of flexibility and allow it to not be too tight over my shoulders. So you sew this tie together, then you trim it. And now you have to turn the tie right side out. So to do this, I use the directions they suggested in the pattern. So use a chopstick, stick it through. Then at the end, you're gonna use another pointy thing to kind of get it to fold in on itself. Get that started. Then take the chopstick out and put that in the kind of turning around where you started that, and pull it over itself, I guess. Did not take very long, and once you get it started, it's all easy from there. So there's my tie, and you just do that for both of them. Technically, you're supposed to attach them before you put the mane and the lining together, so I had to retroactively go back and unpick to put them in. Here is the next step. It's just top stitching, so you can see where I have the lace, and you just top stitch. I did pretty narrow, like a quarter, maybe that's an eighth of an inch. No, that's a quarter, I think. Now you have to make the binding, which finishes the neckline edge. So I wanted to use self fabric for this. I had a bias tape maker, and I was a bit nervous about how this would turn out because polyester doesn't typically press that well, but with a lot of steam and a lot of pressure, I was able to make it work. And then this is double fold, so you stitch in the center line here. Then you trim, and I was actually really nervous about this part because I wasn't super clear on how it would work, and I was worried that I was going to ruin it by trimming it, but I trusted the pattern, and it did work out. So you just trim very close to the stitching line, be very careful with this, and then you fold it over, and then you see the right side looks nice and clean, and the wrong side has all the raw edges encased. And then you top stitch over that. So I used pins, I pinned it with the pins along the seam line, and it worked pretty well. Especially on satin, I was impressed by how clean it looked. Now for the cost breakdown, this is not going to be that helpful because I already had the fabric in my stash, and the lace I also already owned, but the pattern's $15. So that's in total how much it cost me. And now it's time for the reveal. So it was around the time where cherry blossoms were blooming everywhere, so that's why I decided to model it outside, and I think it looks really gorgeous. Here was me at the recital after I had just played, and it worked really well. I felt very comfortable when I was playing, and it gave me the extra bit of coverage that I wanted. One thing that I did that I didn't mention is that when I first tried playing with the cape on, it kept sliding up so that the tie was kind of choking me a little bit. So what I decided to do instead to fix that problem was tack it down to the straps of the dress, just using a hand needle and thread, and that worked really well. So I would actually recommend doing that either with tacks or snaps so that it's not going to ride up and choke you. I didn't capture that on camera though. That's it for this video. Leave me a like if you think the pattern turned out well, or if you think that you'll make it yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.